I wanted to be the first in my family to go to university to get a degree. And what I did with that later, I thought I'd worry about later. And then I got to university eventually. And yeah, I think that for those that know communications, because even back then I was like, what's communications? Like, what do you do with communications degree? And then you look further and further in and you see, oh, okay, you could either go into TV, you could go into radio, you could go into multimedia. And that was at a time, 2005, when kind of the digital age was starting to find its way, and the internet was around and all that sort of jazz. So it was in an exciting space for communications. And it wasn't until 2008. 2008, where I was lucky in my final year of study. I was lucky to pick up a job at Flava.
Oh, straight away?
Well, it was right at the start. I hope you don't mind me sharing. But how this whole broadcasting thing started was that I'll always remember it was a Wednesday afternoon, and it was in March. Yes, it was in March. It was a Wednesday afternoon in March, and Auckland trains can get really, really packed. And so I'd finished uni, I'd come down, catch the train, managed to get a chair, and there's lots of people that stand up on the train and buses, etc. And what happened was I had looked down the end of the train and I saw there was like there was an older Samoan woman. She was standing up. So I was like, oh, and I just looked around. I was like, oh man, why isn't anybody giving up their chair for her? And so I was like, you know what? I went down, tapped her on the shoulder. I was like, hey, come and sit on my chair. So she sat on my chair and I sat on the floor. And then we just started talking. Her name was Victoria Fitisamanu. And then, we were just yarning, and she started asking me, what am I doing? And because she was getting off at Papakura, I was getting off at Papatoi. And through that whole journey, we just started talking about future. And she started asking me, she's like, what do you want to do? What do you study? And I was like, oh, I'm actually in my final year. I don't know what I want to do. I was majoring in TV at the time. And I just thought, oh, just a nice lady. I didn't think she... And then she said to me, oh, I work in media. And I was like, okay. And I was thinking, oh, she must do like admin and that sort of stuff. Excuse me. Real bad, eh? I was like, I thought of the not lowest job, but I didn't really give her much credit. And she said she worked at the radio network. And anyway, she said, look, come and see me tomorrow at the radio network when you have time. And then just get reception to buzz, to contact me. And then I was like, oh. So the radio network today is what they would call NZME. So they're the home of like the Herald, News Talk ZB and all that sort of jazz. And so that was Wednesday. And I was like, oh man, this lady, she didn't tell me what she did or whatever, but she just said to come and see her. So Thursday, I go in to the radio network. I go to reception. I said, hi, I'm here to see Victoria Fitzsimone. And they said, oh, do you have an appointment? I'm like, oh, I don't need an appointment. Anyway, she comes down and I find out that she's involved in she's in the finance department, but not like any old finance department. Like she was actually influential in where the money went. She wasn't CFO or anything like that, but she was quite high up in the finance department. And so she grabbed me and she was like, oh, come, let's go. She set up a meeting for us. So I went into, back then it was, Flava. I think Flava was only like maybe 2 or 3 years old at that time. And this is 2008. And so I walked and she goes, oh, we went into the Flava office. And there was a man, the boss at the time, his name was James Daniels. And James Daniels is a legend in radio, in New Zealand radio. And he's also the father of Stacey Daniels. And she was on the breakfast show at the time. And so I went into a meeting with him and 2 others. And he said, oh, Victoria said to me that, I gave up my seat on the train, etc. And then he goes, oh, do you want a job? And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. And so she had set this all up for me after we had an initial yarn. And then they said, yeah, man, if you want a job, there's a job, you can start tomorrow. And I was like, no way. And she goes, and they said, yeah. They said, do you have your full license? And I said, yes, I didn't. I only had my restricted. And they said, oh, sweet. Yeah, cool. Let us photocopy your license eventually. Lucky, thank God, they didn't ask for it there. But, she had set this all up for me. And, the only reason why I remember it is because, and they said you start tomorrow, and the first ever thing that I worked on was Polyfest. And because, back then, Polyfest was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, sorry. And, so I just started in the street team, and then just managed to kind of evolve my career from then on. So, sorry, I've kind of gone a long way around telling the story, but it all started on a train on a Wednesday evening. So, yeah, man, good manners takes you a long way.